Our journey continues. This time of Marian ascent that we are living and which is entering always more into the living. In order to enter always more into living communion with the heart of this mother and her beloved Son, on this path that is only possible if one abandons oneself totally to the will of the Father, as did Jesus. Also in this passage just read, in this very difficult moment of his life, because everyone had abandoned him, the evangelist says, not even his brothers believed in him. It was certainly a difficult time for Jesus. He had recently proclaimed the speech scandal there in Capernaum, and many of his disciples were scandalized by those words, and they had abandoned him. Now, not even his brothers believe in him. Instead, they set a trap for him. Go to Judea, go. Knowing that the Jews were waiting for him to kill him. Here are those brothers as it is written, but that term must be understood well, which translated from the Greek adelphos, where the Greek term means not simply blood brother, but relative in a broad sense that encompasses so many degrees of kinship. In particular, in this case, it refers to cousins. To some of his cousins, who did not love him and that wanted to set a trap for him. Here it is that Jesus lives this condition of great difficulty, of great suffering. Nevertheless, he knows well the hearts of those his own who rejected him, and that caused great suffering to his heart, that suffering that the Son of God lives. Called to do the Father's will, for this reason not understood, especially by his own. Just as the evangelist St. John describes well in his prologue, he came among his own, but his own did not welcome him. Here in this passage of the Gospel we understand precisely in fullness the bitterness of God. In the face of this ascertainment, that is why Jesus, who well knows the hearts of those people, initially does not want to go to Judea. In fact, he refuses to go. Why? Because he knows well that his time has not yet come. He says, "It is not yet my time." So he wants to obey to the Father first. He wants to fulfill his mission to the end. Then eventually something peculiar happens. Jesus finally decides to go. This is particular. Some might say, he lacks coherence. What happened? Jesus has reconsidered. He wants to be seen. No. There is a profound reason that pushes Jesus to go in Judea, and what is this reason? Love. For the love of the little ones. Out of love first of all for that little one who was the smallest and at the same time the greatest of all, Mary most holy, his mother, who, in the depths of her heart, she longed that the Son could manifest himself to deliver God's people from the bondage of God's enemy. For the love of those friends, the apostles, that after the speech of the scandal, even though they had not understood, they still remained faithful to Jesus. For the love of those little ones who longed to meet the announced and awaited Messiah, to be reassured by the weight of a law that had become overwhelming, unbearable, because no longer made of only 10 laws, as the Father had given, but made up of many and many human precepts, which had nothing to do with the law of God, and who had made that law unbearable, impractical. That's why Jesus finally decided to go to that feast. That's why he decided to expose himself to the risk of going to Judea, out of love for those children. He goes there secretly, though, and this too is also particular. Jesus goes secretly to this feast, to allow those who desire to meet him, to know him, to love him, to be able to do so, but to prevent those who plotted against him from being able to set a trap and be able to kill him, thus preventing him from fully accomplishing the mission that the Father had entrusted to him. This is the wisdom of God. That's why he went secretly, and this also should not be misunderstood. He did not go secretly for fear of being killed. Jesus was not afraid. He went secretly because of the infinite wisdom of God, who never retreats, but that always wants to advance. And he advances in the world, while remaining hidden from the powerful, to advance in the hearts of the little ones, to whom Jesus gives all of himself. Here is the love of God given to the little ones. It remains hidden from the eyes of the world, but advances in the hearts of the little ones. of those who wish to welcome him into their hearts, on the example of Mary. That's why he goes secretly. To those little ones, Jesus wants to give everything, and he promises the gift of the Spirit of truth at the end times. That Spirit, as Jesus said, that would reveal the whole truth. So he makes a great promise to those little ones, for which he thanks the Father. Father, I thank you because you have revealed these things to the little ones and kept them hidden from the powerful. Here are the little ones that Jesus loves with an infinite love, and for which he is willing to risk everything. Here is also that Spirit, which is now manifesting itself in this church wanted by the Father, to help us understand the profound meaning of even these passages we read on Sunday. And in the light of this Spirit, we also understand the profound eschatological significance of this passage. It is significant, not secondary, the reference to that feast, the Feast of Tents, a very important feast for the Jews. It lasted 7 days, the days of creation, as it happens, a feast that took place in a particular time, at the end of the harvest time, a feast that recalled in its very name, Feast of Huts, those temporary dwellings that God's people had used on their journey to the Promised Land, towards Jerusalem, in their crossing the desert. Therefore, here is the final destination. Harvest time are intertwined to project ourselves to the last times, the time when the Son of Man would have returned in the midst of his own again, to fulfill the promises of the New Jerusalem and the fulfillment of peace. Here we are, dear brothers. Here we are, now called to live all this. Here is the profound meaning of this holy path, the profound meaning of this pilgrimage towards the New Jerusalem. Pilgrimage to the little cradle of the baby Jesus, his second and last grotto, as Jesus said in a message, towards this, which Jesus calls his tabernacle, one and only eternal tabernacle, towards the final hut, the tent of testimony, the last tent, set on the highest mountain. Here is that ascent to Jerusalem which is fulfilled in fullness, in the place that the Father has chosen. And how not to think of that descent of the child Jesus, as to that coming, secretly, of Jesus, in the new Judea, in this beautiful country, homeland of Christianity. Jesus came secretly, even with a sign understandable by all, the cloud in the sky that was foretold. How not to think to his coming into this land, where again the priestly caste is well rooted as it was in Judea, and does not welcome willingly, just as over time has happened to God's initiatives to go out to meet his children. Just think of the story of Father Pius, just to mention one among many. But God advances. God does not have to ask permission to anything or anyone. He found the heart of this little maiden, the smallest of all, the most humble, and he came. He waited for nothing else, to meet his little ones, to those little ones he loves with infinite love. Here is the descent of the baby Jesus. Here God in this lost place comes, returns in this little cradle, and takes up dwelling in the heart of this maiden, this woman, who precisely 22 years ago, 4th of August, gave her daughter in marriage to the pontiff of our church, Samuel, to give continuity to this great mystery of love. To make understand that there would be a perfect continuity between what was before and what would come after. This is the gradualness and the wisdom of God, that with great, great wisdom, accompanies the people in the understanding of his truths, to live the church wanted by the Father. This church, filled with Holy Spirit. That Spirit which in this church has come, filling this valley in totality. To be the dwelling of that Son who here has descended, to dwell in spirit and truth among his people. It is certain, this is the truth and is annoying, but it's the truth that must be told. And as then, the truth bothered and so many, as we have read, many said, "No, he is a scoundrel. No, he is a swindler. No, he deceives people." So many others say, "It is he, it is Jesus who came in this land. It is Jesus who gives us peace, who gives us love, who works many miracles." So what does this mean? That one is living the truth of the mystery of God. Then certainly there will always be the Pharisees, now as then, that are scandalized, as they were scandalized then of Jesus. They are scandalized. They were scandalized by the announcement of the New Jerusalem, of the announcement of the return of Jesus that the maiden of God made. They were scandalized by the birth of this church. But we must go forward. We can't stop in front of these Pharisees who continue to point the finger at this church, thinking that it is their only problem. They don't realize that they have huge problems in their house because financial and sexual scandals are constantly erupting, and of many other natures that I don't even want to mention. They do not have the time to point the finger at us that they have to curb all the loopholes that are opening inside their house to manifest the spirit that lives in that house. Because truly atrocious and unspeakable things are happening, for which one should really react strongly, because what one reads is not acceptable, and one hears about everything that is happening, even to the detriment of the little ones, of the innocent. This is not acceptable. This is why I say to those who wish to live Christianity, seek God, not men. Seek God and His truth, and once you have found it, pull straight. Obey to God and not to men. Not to hear you say that day which is very near, I do not know you, because you did not know me when I gave you the opportunity. And God this opportunity now is giving to everyone in this land of love. Jesus said this in a message, in that revelation that many of us remember, called to die to live, lose to gain. At a certain point he says, today there is a more personalized possibility of encountering the mystery of Jesus Christ. Provided, however, that in any case it puts you in contact with the cross and entrusts the grain to the risk of the earth. Here is the recall to that mysterious, intimate, hidden encounter, hidden from the eyes. Here is that secret coming of Jesus. Here again there is a reminder of that passage just read, of that spiritual communion that is lived in this church. Because after all, Jesus going to the feast secretly is the image and prelude of that spiritual communion the church would live in the end times, to give fulfillment to the words that Jesus proclaims right in the speech given in Capernaum, the scandal speech when at the end he says, what does Jesus say? It is the Spirit that gives life. The flesh is of no use. My words are spirit and life. Therefore, here is the living bread descended from heaven once again. 2. Take the risk of the earth again. Here it is that God gets involved. He runs the risk of the earth again, just to save us. He comes among us, but He doesn't stop. He wants to enter our hearts. He wants to live in us. He wants to look with our eyes. He wants to walk with our legs. He wants to speak with our mouths, so that our mouths may say like St. Paul, it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. To give fulfillment to the words that St. Paul said to us, when Christ will be all in all and the final fulfillment will come. This is what we are living. That's why we must be not joyful, more so, because extraordinary is the call we have received, to give God the opportunity to be able to make use of each of us, to hide from the eyes of the world and go out to meet the little ones, to go out to meet all those who wish to meet Him, know Him, love Him, live Him. Following the example of she who first of all and most of all welcomed Him into her heart, making Him grow in her heart so that He could be manifested at the proper time, at the time not set by men, but at the time set by God. Here is Mary. 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 She who is guide, is polar star for us. Let us grasp hold of her hands tightly in order to become living members of this church, Universal Christian Church of the New Jerusalem, in order to become many little Jesus and so many little Marys, and live in full form as we say in that prayer. The plan of love and redemption, for the glory and honor to the Father. And so be it.